Hey guys, tonight we're heading back in time to a city that exists mostly in the dust of history and the pages of Roman propaganda. We're going to Carthage, the great Punic trading empire that was so powerful and so fascinating that its rival, Rome, basically had to wipe it off the face of the earth just to feel safe. Tonight, you're not just listening to a story, you are there. You trudge off a salt-crusted trireme, the air thick with the scent of spices, hot sun on your face, and the distant, constant hum of a massive port city. The shouts of sailors, the clatter of metal on stone, the braying of donkeys. It's a chaotic symphony. It's a city of immense wealth and immense mystery. One moment, you'll be admiring a finely carved ivory statuette, and the next you'll be trying to figure out why everyone is wearing so much purple. But here's the thing. You probably won't survive this day. It's a city of strange gods, even stranger customs, and a whole lot of weird food. Your modern sensibilities and delicate stomach will be put to the test. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If you're listening, let me know your location and local time in the comments. I always love to see where you're all sleeping. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step off the gangplank and onto the bustling docks of Carthage, and immediately your senses are overwhelmed. The smell is a complex bouquet of fish, salt, and exotic resins. The sounds are a cacophony of languages you've never heard, a mix of Phoenician, Greek, and Egyptian dialects all swirling together. This port, called the Tophet, is the lifeblood of the city, a marvel of engineering with its circular naval harbor and rectangular merchant port. You can't help but notice the enormous, intricate stone walls and watchtowers that circle the harbor, a silent promise of the city's military might. It's a very different world from the simple wooden docks you might be used to in your own life. Here, everything is deliberate, monumental, and designed to protect the source of the city's power. It's the very first, and perhaps most important, piece of your Carthaginian puzzle. But a puzzle it is. You stand there for a moment, getting your bearings, and a man walks by carrying a massive sack of what looks like salt, and he's singing a chant you don't understand, but it has a soothing, rhythmic quality. You watch as a Carthaginian merchant, draped in a simple but finely woven tunic, negotiates with a sailor over a bundle of papyrus rolls. Their hands move in a complex series of gestures, and it's clear they don't even need to speak. Trade is so central here that it has its own nonverbal language. It's almost like they're dancing. You start to feel the heat of the midday sun pressing down on you. It's not the dry heat you might expect, but a humid, salty warmth. You begin to walk inland, away from the immediate chaos of the docks, towards the heart of the city. You pass by a row of small stalls where merchants are selling dried fish, oddly shaped clay pots, and little religious amulets. You notice that many of these amulets are shaped like a hand with a thumb and two fingers pointed up, which you will soon learn is the hand of Tophet, a symbol of the city's patron goddess. It's a small, curious detail that gives you your first hint of the deep spirituality that permeates Carthaginian life. The streets become a little wider here, though still crowded. The homes are simple, boxy structures made of sun-dried mud bricks and painted with a stark white lime wash. They're built close together, sharing walls, which you realize is a clever way to keep them cooler in the oppressive heat. The narrow alleys between them are a welcome, cool relief. You can smell cooking fires, a mixture of olive oil, grains, and something you can't quite identify. Maybe it's a spice, or maybe it's just the charcoal itself. This is your reality now, and it's a reality of constant stimulation. There's never a quiet moment, never a truly private space. You are always part of the crowd, part of the city's unceasing rhythm. It's the kind of environment that would give a modern person a low-level headache, a constant, gentle thrum of sensory overload. But for a Carthaginian, this is just life. It's the sound of community, the smell of home. You start to notice how people dress simple tunics for most, but some of the wealthier men wear a linen wrap, and the women, you notice, have their hair often covered with scarves. The colors are muted, mostly natural dyes like ochre and brown, with that occasional flash of purple you saw earlier. That purple, you'll discover later, is called Tyrian purple, a very expensive dye made from murex sea snails. It's the color of kings, of prestige, and of trade. It's the color of Carthage itself. As you meander further, the gentle slope of the city becomes more apparent. The houses seem to stack on top of each other, creating a layered, terraced effect. You finally find a moment to stop and just breathe. You lean against a warm stone wall, closing your eyes for a moment to let the noise of the city wash over you. You realize that you have no idea what you're doing here, and you have no idea how you're going to get by. You are an outsider, a total nobody, a person with no skills or knowledge of this culture. But that, you remind yourself, is part of the fun. Historians still argue whether Carthage was a truly multicultural melting pot or a rigid society with a few wealthy elites on top. From your vantage point on the street, it seems to be a little bit of both. You see people who look North African, people who look Levantine, and even a few who look distinctly Greek. Everyone seems to have their own place, their own role, in this strange, beautiful, and utterly overwhelming city. You feel a pang of exhaustion. The journey here was long, and the day has been a shock to your system. But you have no bed to go back to. You have to find a way to make it through the day. And with that thought, a new reality sets in. You have to find a job. And to do that, you'll need to learn the rules of this place. You push off the wall and continue your walk, a little more purposefully now. You need to earn your dinner. Your feet ache from the walk, and you're starting to get hungry. The first thing you need, you decide, is a job. But what kind of job? As you walk, you notice the city is structured in a way that's completely foreign to you. You see a large, open plaza where a few wealthy-looking men are standing around, gesturing and talking loudly. This, you gather, must be the center of civic life for the elite. The clothes are finer here, the linen is wider, and the gold jewelry is more prominent. A few servants are scurrying about, carrying small clay tablets and rolls of papyrus. The air is slightly less chaotic, a little more structured. But you know you don't belong here. Your clothes are dusty from the road, and your skin is burned from the sun. You'd be laughed out of the plaza before you could even state your intentions. You realize that ancient Carthage is not a place where you can just walk up and ask for a job. Your social standing, or lack thereof, is immediately apparent. So you turn away from the plaza and head deeper into the residential and commercial areas, where the streets are narrower and the sounds are a bit more earthy. Here, you see artisans at work in their small, open-fronted shops. A bronze smith hammers rhythmically, the sound ringing off the nearby buildings. A potter spins a wheel, his hands covered in clay, completely focused on the vessel taking shape. And you see a woman weaving a vibrant tapestry on a loom, the threads of Tyrian purple and Egyptian blue, a splash of color in the otherwise dusty street. You find yourself drawn to the potters. The work seems straightforward enough. Take clay, shape it, fire it. You've seen it done 1,000 times on YouTube. But as you watch, you realize just how much skill is involved. This isn't just shaping mud. It's a craft passed down through generations. These are experts, and you, a total novice, would be more of a hindrance than a help. Your first instinct is to ask, but you hesitate, realizing that you might be insulting them by even suggesting you could do what they do. The Carthaginian class system, you're learning, is a very subtle, unspoken thing. Your place is determined by your family, your skills, and your reputation. You have none of these. You continue to walk, and you pass a series of small shops selling things you can't quite identify. There are spices, dried herbs, and what look like strange medicinal plants. You see a man selling small glass bottles of perfume, and another selling brightly colored pigments for paint. It's a feast for the senses, but it's also a reminder of your ignorance. You don't know the names of any of these things, let alone how to use them. You're starting to get a little desperate. Your stomach rumbles loudly, and you realize you have no Carthaginian currency. You'll have to find a way to earn it. And you realize, with a sinking feeling, that your best bet might be the most menial labor available. Something that requires no skill, just a willingness to sweat. You start to look for signs of that kind of work. You hear a loud, rhythmic thudding coming from a side street, and you go to investigate. You find a group of men carrying large, heavy baskets of goods, probably for a merchant. They are clearly exhausted, their faces streaked with sweat and dust, their muscles straining. This is it, you think. This is your reality. You approach one of the men, a gruff-looking individual with a salt and pepper beard, and try to ask for work. You use simple gestures, pointing to yourself, and then to the baskets, and a few broken words from a language you think might be Greek. The man just shakes his head, a look of weary pity on his face. He doesn't speak your language, and he doesn't have the authority to hire you anyway. You continue your search, feeling more and more like a lost tourist. You're an observer in a world where everyone else is a participant. You're starting to get the sense that you wouldn't last a day here, not because of a grand battle or some horrific torture, but because of the simple, crushing reality of daily life. You wouldn't know how to eat, how to speak, or how to work. You would be a burden, a ghost. But just as you're about to give up and find a shady corner to nap in, you pass by a larger building with a wide, open courtyard. You see a few young men and boys sitting in the courtyard, writing on tablets with styluses. This, you realize with a jolt, must be a school. And then you see a man, a teacher, walking among them, correcting their work. You notice he has a slightly more educated look to him, and you realize he might be your best bet for finding someone who speaks your language. You decide to risk it. You walk into the courtyard, and the teacher looks up, his eyes a mix of curiosity and annoyance. You hold up your hands, palms out, to show you mean no harm. "Is there?" you say slowly, trying a few different words. "Work?" He looks at you, a faint smile on his face, and then he speaks. And to your immense relief, you hear words that sound like Greek, a language you've studied in a boring college class. It's not perfect, but it's understandable. "You are a foreigner," he says, a statement, not a question. You nod. "You seek work in the city of Carthage?" You nod again, more enthusiastically this time. He seems to be weighing his options, looking you up and down. He's a scholar, not a merchant. What kind of work could he offer? He finally says, "The Carthaginian social structure is like the sea, with the nobles as the great ships and the laborers as the small fishing boats. And you, my friend, are a driftwood. You have no place, no purpose. But I do have a garden, and it needs tending. Can you dig? And with that, you have a job. It's not glamorous. It's not even a skilled trade, but it's a start. It's a chance to earn a coin, to buy a meal, to last another day in this impossible city." You realize this is how many foreigners probably survived, by finding a small, obscure niche where their lack of a name or family didn't matter. Historians still argue whether Carthage was a truly open society for outsiders, or if this teacher was just a particularly kind man. Either way, you now have a job, and you have a very long, very hot day of digging ahead of you. You follow the teacher, a man who introduces himself as Hanno, to his home. It's a modest but well-kept house, with a small courtyard in the center that is indeed a garden in need of some serious attention. The first task he gives you is to dig up a small patch of weeds and prepare the soil for new plantings. It's hard work, but the simple, repetitive motion of the hoe and shovel is almost meditative. The sun is now high overhead, and the heat is intense. You work steadily, trying not to think about how much you'd rather be napping in an air-conditioned room. You notice that the garden is walled off from the street, and a small fountain trickles in the center, providing a gentle, calming sound. Hanno's wife, a kind-faced woman named Alyssa, brings you a small bowl of something for a midday meal. You're starving, so you eagerly take it, not knowing what you're about to eat. It's a thick porridge, a mix of barley and chickpeas, with a few dates on the side. You are grateful for the food, but you find the taste a little bland. This, you are realizing, is what passes for a normal meal here. You are starting to miss your modern diet of pre-packaged, highly processed, and artificially flavored food. Then Alyssa hands you a small, cracked clay pot. Inside is a thick, brownish liquid. "Garum," she says simply, her voice soft and melodic. You sniff it hesitantly. It smells fishy and a little bit sour. It's fermented fish sauce, a staple of the Carthaginian diet. You try a tiny bit, and the flavor is intense, salty, and a little funky. It's not bad, you realize, but it's definitely an acquired taste. You use it to flavor the rest of your porridge, and it helps. You realize that this is what a Carthaginian breakfast, or lunch, or dinner might be like. Simple, hearty, and full of garum. It makes you think about how our tastes have changed over the millennia. What was a delicacy to them would be a strange novelty to us. You make a mental note to appreciate your next meal of pizza, just in case. And you can't help but wonder if their kids had to be bribed to eat their garum, the way you had to be bribed to eat your broccoli. It's the little things that connect us across time, isn't it? As you finish your meal, Hanno comes out to check on your progress. He sees you finishing the porridge and says, "A man cannot work on an empty stomach." He then brings out a small, round loaf of bread, which is surprisingly dense and chewy. It's made from a type of wheat that you can't quite identify, and it's a little coarse, but it's also incredibly filling. You eat it slowly, savoring the simple flavor. Hanno sits down with you, and you both just sit there in a moment of quiet contemplation. The only sounds the trickle of the fountain and the distant murmur of the city. He then tells you about how Carthaginian traders would sail to far-off lands, trading for the finest spices and grains. He says that the Carthaginian diet, while simple for the common person, was a feast for the wealthy. They would have access to exotic fruits, roasted meats, and fine wines. You, however, are a simple laborer, and your diet reflects that. You are starting to understand that in Carthage, your social status is not just determined by your clothes or your job, but also by what you eat. It's a very clear, very present marker of your place in society. You also learn that a Carthaginian's diet was surprisingly healthy. They ate a lot of fish, grains, fruits, and vegetables. Meat was a rare luxury, reserved for special occasions and religious feasts. They didn't have the same problems with high cholesterol and processed sugars that we do today. Your body, you realize, would probably thank you for this diet, even if your taste buds are a little confused. But then Hanno tells you a quirky little tidbit about Carthaginian food. They used to bake bread in the shape of their gods. You can just imagine a Carthaginian baker kneading a loaf in the shape of Baal-Hamon, the city's chief deity. It would be a bit like eating a loaf of bread shaped like a Christmas tree, you think, but for a god. It's a small detail, but it gives you a sense of the deep religiosity that permeated every aspect of their lives, even something as simple as baking bread. Historians still argue whether the Carthaginian diet was truly as bland as Roman sources claim, or if the Romans were simply being snobs. You can't help but think that the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Your porridge was a little bland, but the garum helped. It was a utilitarian meal, designed to give you the energy to work, not to wow your taste buds. As you finish the last of your bread, you feel a gentle wave of drowsiness wash over you. The sun is warm, the work has been hard, and the food has been heavy. You could easily fall asleep right here in the shade of the garden. But you know you have to get back to work. You have to earn your dinner too. You have a long way to go before you can truly rest. With a full stomach and a moment of rest, you feel a renewed sense of purpose. It's a good thing too, because Hanno has more work for you. He wants you to help him navigate the city to a market to buy some seeds for the garden. You leave the peaceful tranquility of his home and step back into the chaotic, sun-drenched streets of Carthage. The city is a maze, a honeycomb of narrow streets and even narrower alleyways. There is no grid system here, no logical pattern to the layout. The streets seem to bend and twist at random, a legacy of centuries of organic growth. It's a testament to the ingenuity of the Carthaginians, who built their city around the natural contours of the land. But it's an absolute nightmare for a newcomer like you. You would be hopelessly lost in minutes if you were on your own. As you walk with Hanno, he points out a few landmarks. He points to a large hill in the distance, crowned with what looks like a temple. This, he says, is the Byrsa Hill, the heart of the city and the home of the most important temples and administrative buildings. You learn that, according to Roman sources, this is where the mythical Queen Dido first founded the city, cutting a single ox hide into thin strips to encircle the largest possible area of land. It's a great story, but you're more concerned with not getting run over by a donkey cart. The streets are busy, and you have to constantly be on your guard. You see people carrying all sorts of things, bundles of firewood, baskets of fruit, live chickens squawking in cages. It's a pedestrian's obstacle course. You're also starting to notice how the smell of the city changes as you move through it. Near a butcher's stall, the smell of blood and raw meat is overpowering. Near a baker, the scent of fresh bread and wood smoke is a welcome relief. It's a city of 1,000 smells, all of them vying for your attention. Hanno leads you through a residential area, where the houses are built so close together that they create a kind of natural shade. The alleys are cool and dark, a brief respite from the relentless sun. You notice that many of the houses have small windows, and some of them have no windows at all on the street side. This is to protect the privacy of the families inside, but it also creates a feeling of being watched, of a city with 1,000 eyes. You can hear the sounds of life behind the walls, the laughter of children, the clatter of pots and pans, the low murmur of conversation. You realize that you're an outsider, not just in your origin, but in your very presence. You are a ghost moving through a world of living, breathing people who have no idea you're there. And you are so glad that Hanno is with you, because you have no doubt that if you had tried to walk through these streets on your own, you would have gotten lost or worse. The Punic language, which you don't speak, would have been a wall between you and everyone else. A small communication error in this kind of place could have serious consequences. A Carthaginian might think you're trying to steal from them, or that you're insulting them. A misunderstanding could escalate quickly, and you have no one to back you up. Finally, you arrive at the marketplace. It's a large, bustling, open-air space, filled with stalls and people. The noise here is incredible. It's a low roar, a hum of human activity. You see merchants from all over the Mediterranean, Greeks, Egyptians, even a few men who look distinctly Roman. The variety of goods is staggering. You see spices from the East, pottery from Greece, papyrus from Egypt, and wool from Spain. It's a testament to the Carthaginian trading empire, a fact that would be completely lost on you if you didn't have Hanno there to point it out. You're just seeing a bunch of stuff you don't recognize. A merchant tries to sell you a small carved ivory box. He speaks to you in a mix of Punic and Greek, and you shake your head, trying to convey that you have no money. He shrugs and moves on, his eyes already searching for the next customer. This is the heart of Carthage. You realize, not the temples or the administrative buildings, but this marketplace. This is where the money is made, where the power is held, where the city's identity is forged. Historians still argue about how much of Carthage's power was based on trade versus military might. But standing here, surrounded by the clamor of commerce, you get the sense that it was mostly about trade. It's an economy of goods and services, not of conquest and subjugation. The Romans might have built their empire on the point of a sword, but the Carthaginians built theirs on the back of a cargo ship. And you realize, with a little bit of a thrill, that you've just seen the economic engine of one of the greatest empires in the ancient world. You are a part of this moment. A tiny, insignificant part, but a part nonetheless. After Hanno finishes his business at the market, he guides you through the winding streets again. You're starting to get a little bit better at navigating, but you're still completely dependent on him. The sun is starting to get a little lower in the sky, and the air is getting a little cooler. As you walk, you pass by a part of the city that feels different. The streets are a little wider, the walls are a little taller, and the air is quieter. This, you realize, must be the more affluent part of the city, where the nobles and wealthy merchants live. The houses here are grander, with beautiful gardens and intricate stone carvings around the doors. You feel a little bit out of place, a dusty laborer walking through a world of wealth and privilege. But then, Hanno takes a turn down a particularly wide, straight street. This street leads to a large, walled complex on the outskirts of the city. As you get closer, you realize that this is not a residential area. This is a cemetery. Hanno gestures to the complex, and a look of quiet reverence crosses his face. This is the Tophet, he explains, a sanctuary dedicated to the gods Baal, Hammon, and Tanit. You feel a little shiver run down your spine. You've heard of the Tophet in a vague, unsettling way. It's the place where, according to Roman sources, the Carthaginians would perform child sacrifices. Hanno doesn't mention this, of course. He just says it's a place of worship, a sacred ground. He tells you about the Sippi, the small stone stelae that mark the graves. They are carved with intricate symbols, including the sign of Tanit, a stylized hand with a circle on top and a crescent moon. He says that the Tophet is where the city's children are laid to rest, a final act of devotion to the gods. You don't have the heart to ask him about the sacrifices. It's a heavy subject, a dark cloud hanging over the history of Carthage, and you don't want to bring it up to a man who seems to genuinely believe in his gods. As you walk past the Tophet, you can't help but feel a little bit of unease. The Roman accounts of child sacrifice are, of course, biased and almost certainly exaggerated. But archaeologists have found thousands of urns containing the cremated remains of infants and young children in the Tophet, along with animal remains. So the truth, like so much of Carthaginian history, is murky. Historians still argue fiercely about what these remains mean. Were they sacrifices, as the Romans claimed? Or were they simply the remains of children who died young from disease? A common tragedy in the ancient world. The urns could have been a way for the Carthaginians to honor their lost children and to ask their gods for comfort. Maybe, you think, it was a little bit of both. Maybe some sacrifices were made in times of great crisis. But the day-to-day reality was much more mundane and much more heartbreaking. The Tophet, in that case, would be a place of quiet, dignified mourning, not a place of horror. It's a good thought, a calming thought, to ease the uneasiness in your stomach. Hanno then tells you a peculiar tidbit about their religion. The Carthaginians believed that the souls of the dead would sometimes linger, and they would leave out small bowls of honey and milk for them. It was a way of making sure the spirits were well fed and happy, and wouldn't cause any trouble. It's a small, gentle superstition, and it makes you feel a little better about the whole Tophet business. It shows that even in a city with such a dark reputation, there was also a great deal of love and devotion. There was a desire to care for the dead, to make sure they were comfortable in the afterlife. It's a very human impulse, and it's one that connects you to the Carthaginians in a way that all the talk of trade and war couldn't. you realize that ancient people weren't so different from us. They had their fears, their hopes, and their strange little rituals. You're starting to feel the exhaustion of the day setting in. Your mind is a jumble of new information and new sensations. You've seen the bustling port, the intricate marketplace, and the solemn Tophet. You've learned about their food, their social structure, and their religion. You feel a wave of gratitude for Hanno, who has been your guide through this impossible day. You know you wouldn't have lasted an hour on your own, and you wonder what the rest of the day will bring. Will you find a place to sleep? Will you be safe? You don't know the answers to those questions, but you have a new sense of quiet confidence. You've survived the day so far, and you're starting to get the hang of things. You have a job, you've had a meal, and you have a friend in Hanno. It's not a lot, but it's enough to get you through to the end of the day. And that's all you can really ask for, isn't it? Survival is a day-to-day business. As you walk back toward Hanno's home, the sun is a brilliant orange, casting long, dramatic shadows across the city. The air is finally starting to feel cool and comfortable. But just as you're starting to relax, Hanno stops you. "We must be careful here," he says quietly, his voice low. "The law is not always kind to foreigners." You look at him, confused. What law? You've already learned that the social structure is a tricky thing, but you hadn't considered the formal laws of the city. He explains that Carthaginian law was notoriously strict, a reflection of their rigid, trade-focused society. There were laws for everything, from what you could eat to how you could dress. And for foreigners, the laws were even more convoluted. You could be fined for something you didn't even know was a crime, and you would have no recourse. It was a way of keeping the city's many foreigners in their place, a constant reminder that they were not full citizens. He then tells you a particularly quirky and unsettling law. Carthaginian law, he says, had a section dedicated to something called Mishpat Hagola, or the law of the stranger. It was a series of codes that essentially made it illegal to be a disturbing presence. This could mean anything from speaking too loudly in the wrong neighborhood to wearing clothes that were considered too flashy. The punishment could range from a simple fine to, in some cases, a public beating. And as a foreigner, you wouldn't even have a right to a trial. You would just have to accept your punishment and move on. You realize that your lack of knowledge about this culture isn't just an inconvenience, it's a genuine danger. You could accidentally violate one of these laws and find yourself in a very difficult situation. It's a good thing, you think, that you're wearing simple, dusty clothes and that you haven't been talking very much. Hanno also tells you about a strange law related to trade, a cornerstone of Carthaginian life. There was a law that made it illegal to engage in a new type of trade without getting the express permission of a council of elders. This was to protect the established merchants and to keep the market stable, but it also had the effect of stifling innovation. It was a very conservative approach to economics, one that put the stability of the city above the ambitions of a single person. You, with your modern mindset of disruption and startups, would be completely baffled by this. In your world, innovation is king. In Carthage, tradition and stability were more important. It makes you realize that you would have been a terrible Carthaginian merchant. You would have been thrown in jail for trying to invent a new kind of spice mix, or for trying to sell a new kind of pottery without permission. It's a sobering thought, a reminder that the rules of society are not universal. And then he tells you about a law that makes you chuckle, a law that seems to have a bit of gentle sarcasm embedded in it. There was a law that forbade people from using their neighbors' rooftops as a shortcut. It seems so obvious, and yet, the fact that a law had to be passed to stop it tells you everything you need to know about Carthaginian life. It tells you that the city was so crowded, the streets were so confusing, and the people were so pressed for space that they were literally walking on each other's roofs. It's a hilarious and oddly endearing image, a testament to the chaotic, vibrant energy of the city. Historians still argue about the exact nature of this law, but they agree that it was a very real problem in the crowded, multi-story tenements of Carthage. It gives you a little bit of a chuckle, a moment of lightheartedness in an otherwise very serious and dangerous day. As you near Hanno's home, you feel a new respect for him. He's not just a kind teacher. He's a man who has successfully navigated this complex, legalistic society. He knows the unspoken rules, the subtle customs, and the dangers. He has kept you safe, and he has taught you a lot. He has shown you that ancient Carthage was a place of great beauty and great danger, a place of immense wealth and immense poverty, a place of deep spirituality and strict, unforgiving laws. And you are so very, very grateful that he was your guide. You realize that you've just scratched the surface of this city, and you've already had a day full of wonder and a day full of danger. And you are now so tired that you can barely think straight. All you can think about is a place to rest, a soft bed, and a moment of peace. You've earned it, you think. You've survived a day in ancient Carthage. You and Hanno finally arrive back at his home. The day is almost over, and you can feel your eyelids getting heavy. You've been walking, working, and learning all day, and your mind is completely exhausted. Hanno gestures to a small, enclosed room just off the main courtyard. It's a simple space, with a small straw mattress on the floor and a single clay lamp on a small table. "You may sleep here for the night," he says, his voice kind. "You have earned your rest." You thank him profusely, and he just smiles and leaves you to your own devices. The room is cool and quiet, a welcome respite from the constant noise and chaos of the city. You close the door and finally, you are alone. You lay down on the straw mattress, and it feels like the most luxurious bed you've ever slept in. The air smells of baked clay and dried straw, a simple, earthy scent that is profoundly calming. You try to go to sleep, but your mind is a whirlwind of thoughts and images. You think about the crowded port, the smell of salt and fish. You think about the bland but filling porridge and the pungent taste of garum. You remember the terrifying quiet of the Tophet and the strange, quirky law about walking on your neighbor's roofs. It's a lot to process, and your brain feels like it's been working overtime. You realize that you've just experienced a day in the life of a person in ancient Carthage, and it has been nothing like you would have imagined. It wasn't a day of epic battles or grand speeches. It was a day of simple, repetitive tasks, of hard work, and of trying to figure out a society that was completely alien to you. And you survived. Barely, you think, but you survived. You start to notice the sounds of the night. The city doesn't go completely silent. You can still hear the distant hum of the port, the low braying of a donkey, and the occasional shout from a reveler in a nearby tavern. But these sounds are different now. They are no longer a chaotic symphony. They are a lullaby. The city is settling down for the night, and so are you. The lamp flickers, casting a warm, soft glow on the walls. You can feel your body finally relaxing, the tension in your shoulders and back melting away. You are safe. You are warm. You are fed, and you are so very, very tired. You close your eyes, and the final image that comes to your mind is the face of Hanno, the kind teacher who gave a stranger a job and a place to sleep. He is a reminder that even in a city with a reputation for being ruthless and cruel, there was a great deal of kindness and humanity. He is a testament to the fact that people are people, no matter what era they live in. They have their customs, their beliefs, and their strange laws, but they also have their hearts. And that, you realize, is the most important lesson of all. The lamp flickers once more, and then it goes out. The soft rustle of straw against the floor is the only sound, and a gentle, distant hum of a city finally sleeping. The air is cool on your skin, a soft breeze from the sea making its way through a small crack in the wall. You are no longer in a city of strange laws and fermented sauces. You are no longer a stranger. You are just a person resting and breathing and finally, letting yourself drift away into the quiet, comfortable blackness of a well-earned sleep. The final sounds fade the whispers of a long-dead city, the soft lap of the water against the docks, and you are gone adrift until the morning.